My parents always said, Nick, you don't know what you can achieve until you try it. And the doctors looked at me and said, he's not going to walk, he's not going to go to school, he's not going to do anything in his life. And man, my parents, they just loved me like crazy and said, you got to try. Try this, try that, try this, try that. And I'm thinking sometimes like, Mom and Dad, you're crazy, man. I have no arms, no legs. How would I ever be able to do this or do that? But they encouraged me and they loved me. And as human beings, we're waiting for stuff like that. We all want love. Everybody say love. Very good. The definition of tough means strong. To show your strength, you need to do something that's difficult. I would sound so stupid if I said, hey guys, I got a Matchbox car one day, and I got some fishing line, and I towed that Matchbox car all around all day. How tough is my BMW? That's stupid. I don't care if you end up being a janitor in this school, I'll tell you why. Because the janitor in my high school inspired me to be a speaker. He changed my life. He said, you should be a speaker. You know what I said? You're crazy. He said, no, really, you need to be a speaker. I said, stop it, man. 4 months later, he twisted my arm, and I said, yes. I spoke in front of 10 people, then another 10, then another 10, then I found myself in front of 300 sophomore students. And 3 minutes into my speech, half the girls were crying, and one girl in the middle of the room started weeping. And she put up her hand and she said, I'm so sorry. Can I come up there and give you a hug? And in front of everybody, she came up and she hugged me, she cried on my shoulder, and she whispered in this ear, thank you, thank you, thank you. No one's ever told me that they love me. No one's ever told me that I'm beautiful the way that I am. It was because my parents told me that I was beautiful that I'm still here. Some of you don't have those parents, and that's why I'm here. I love you, and you're beautiful just the way you are. Never, ever give up.
There you go. That's Nick Vujicic.
That's the guy who played the role in the circus movie.
The Butterfly Circus. There he is, doing public speaking. He speaks to high schools, he speaks all over the world. He's got a boat, he's got an awesome house with a pool, he's got a wife, kids, he's got an awesome life. He did not allow how he was born to affect the quality of his life. It was. Like, it's so inspiring. I'm like, a lot of us have 2 legs, 2 arms, we can see, we can hear, and we lie in bed and make excuses why we can't accomplish something. Yes.
Can he actually swim?
He can get in a pool. Like he can, I guess he can move his little, he doesn't really have feet. He has like little things, but he can tread, let's say he can tread water. So, yeah, so it's an amazing story. He probably has more money than anybody in this room. It's probably, I mean, yes.
I know this is not really like a question, I guess, but like, I loved how he said, like, in the film, that his grandmother was the one that
Who
like,
inspired him?
And I've like noticed too, it's always people that go through like the hard things that are the most encouraging. So like push you further in life, which is really inspirational in my opinion.
It really is. I mean, would you rather take advice from somebody who never had the struggle? I'm just asking. Or would you rather take advice from somebody who did? Like, let's say you want to be a millionaire. So who wants to be a millionaire? Okay. Now, you have a choice. You can talk to people who have no idea what it's like to be a millionaire for advice on how to be a millionaire. You can do that. Does that make sense? If you want to be a millionaire, what type of people should you be talking to learn about becoming a millionaire? People who are millionaires. Like, it's just obvious. But it's just, you just put it on the desk. Just leave it down somewhere. Somebody can do it. if you want to know how to get over a struggle or life challenges, you should talk to people who've gotten over struggles and life challenges. Like, it's asking people for advice who have no idea. If I wanted to start a career in television, why would I talk to people who have no idea what it's like to work in television? So, all right, is somebody about to say something else? All right, very good. All right, like I said, I wanted to show you that because I wanted you guys to see. You saw him in the movie, now you see him in real life. He also has a book that I haven't read, and he has I think you said something about this too. He's very religious, or he's a Christian, and he lets people know about his Christian faith too, a lot of times when he speaks. So there's that. All right, everybody doing okay today?
Yes, mister.
All right, so let me do the announcements real quick. Today we're going to continue, and we definitely should finish chapter 1, Introduction into Psychology. Today we'll be focusing on research, where we started, experimentation, and ethics in research. In other words, rules or guidelines when conducting research, whether it's research for psychology-related fields or whether it's science itself, okay? And so that's what we'll be doing today, and then on Tuesday, we're gonna start a whole new chapter. Now, your syllabus that I have printed, the class schedule is wrong. I'm gonna email you the corrected version. On Tuesday, we're starting not chapter 2, not chapter 3, but chapter 4. Chapter 4 is states of consciousness. And so in that chapter, we'll be looking at how people pay attention to things and how they don't. We'll also be looking at, when we talk about states of consciousness, you're either conscious or you're unconscious. We're going to talk about things that affect our consciousness, such as drugs. And we'll also spend a lot of time talking about both sleep and about dreams. There's a lot of research that's done about those two categories, so that's what we're going to be discussing. Now, I need to explain something about certain chapters. So we're skipping to chapter 4. There are some chapters I will not be discussing in class. We don't have time. The semester isn't that long. It's only 2 days a week. But there are still some of the quizzes associated with these chapters you're still responsible for doing. Like chapter 2, I think there's a quiz you have to do. But because I'm not talking about it, it's not going to be in your test. Anything that I don't talk about is not in your test. So there's a chapter on the brain. I think that may be the next chapter. You got to do the quiz. I'm sorry, but we're not going to be we're not discussing it. It's kind of boring, actually. Unless you like studying about the different parts of the brain. Unless you guys want to study different parts of the brain. Cerebellum and all that stuff? Yeah? No? Okay. So, but anyway, so we won't be going over that. But like I said, if we go over it in the room, it's up here on the screen, it's going to be on the test. Okay? So, but next week, we'll start that. And speaking of next week, don't forget, chapter 1 quiz is due September the 2nd. That's next Tuesday. All right? Any questions? Yes, what's your name again?
Katie.
Katie.
But this is about password. Is that the only attendance sheet?
No, there's 2 floating around. Where's the other attendance sheet? There should be 2. There's 1. Let me hold on it up back there so we can come on that side. And basically, these just float around the classroom. So, something's coming in. Anybody else needs it after? You said Katie? Okay. Yep. All right. So without further ado, let's get back into.
Let's get the show started.
Now, we started talking yesterday about research. And then once we started talking about the different ways in which research is conducted. One of the ways we talked about how research is done, and it's how many of us did our research for a term paper in school, was simply by what's known as archival research. That's where you seek out existing data and you examine it in order to test a hypothesis. When you did your school report, or if somebody's doing archival research, they can use census documents, college records, online databases, newspaper clippings, magazines, whatever information you can find. That's one way of gaining information using descriptive techniques to do your research. This is all about descriptive techniques. This is where we left off on Tuesday. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to every method of research. The advantage to this form is really inexpensive. You can research any topic you want to by just going online or going into a library. It's real cheap to do research. The disadvantages, the data may not be in a form that allows you to fully test whatever hypothesis is. Like whatever point you're trying to make, just because you can access all this information, that still doesn't mean that that's proof positive why your hypothesis or your theory is correct. Now, the next form of descriptive techniques to do research is called naturalistic observation. Naturalistic observation.
Definition? Observes.
This is an easy way to do research too. We'll talk about it in a second. As you're writing down the definition, of course, you look at it, the important words are natural, observe. Natural and observe. Something we do all the time. Something we do naturally, something we do organically every single day. We look around us, we observe. We observe our environment. When we're not being distracted by our cell phones. Which is usually the case. So according to our textbook.
Yeah. Wow. These are just simply records. No, Rich, are you okay? Oh, this is good. It's funny.
You only need to write down information. All right, naturalistic observation. According to your textbook, it is defined as an investigator when an investigator observes some naturally occurring behavior and does not make a change in the situation. So, say for example, I want to do some naturalistic observing about when there's a break room over here. Do students tend to study while they're in the break room, or are they on their devices? That's what I want to study. So I'm going to do a naturalistic observation. I have a couple of ways I can do it.
What people do.
I can sit in there. I can sit in the break room and just observe and just take notes.
That's a natural habit.
If I don't want to, if I don't want to be in there, I can set up some hidden cameras. I just hide some cameras, so I can even put up a cell phone somewhere or a miniature camera, hook a miniature camera up to my cell phone, and just naturally observe: are people studying, or are they just scrolling on their phone?
The inability.
Now, the key to doing a naturalistic observation, I can't change anything. I can't, you know what, I'm gonna play some music in the background. Nope, can't, because it's not natural anymore, because I'm changing the setting. They shouldn't even know that I'm observing them. Because if people know you're observing them, their behaviors may no longer be natural. And it's the same thing that happens when scientists or people who study animals, they do the same thing. Like if somebody wants to study chimpanzees in the wild, you can't get too close and let the chimpanzees know you're there, because then they're not going to behave naturally. So what you have to do, you either have to be far enough away, maybe with binoculars or something, or you have to hide some cameras to see how the chimpanzees truly are in their natural environment. You guys understand that? I mean, people talk about reality shows, so funny to use the word reality as part of it. How could it really be reality? Most of them got auditioned before they got the role. Everybody knows there's cameras. Everybody on a reality show is mic'd up. So are they really, is reality TV really real? How could it be? They're performing. Or they know they're mic'd up, they know there's cameras, they know this is gonna be on TV. So, now, the advantage to doing naturalistic observation is it enables people to get a sample of what people do naturally in their environment. The disadvantages are that you don't have any ability to control what's going on, because then you would change it. So, now, another descriptive technique to do research is called survey research. Some of you in this room may have even taken a survey. As a matter of fact, I would think if you haven't taken a survey, at some point you will. This school right here will probably send you a survey at the end of the semester to share your thoughts about your classes. That's a survey. Sometimes when you make a purchase, after you make the purchase, you look in your email, and they want, hey, if you don't mind, you take a survey. Or you call your bank, and they want, hey, we just want to check to make sure you are satisfied with the service you received. Could you take this quick survey? Surveys are another way in which you can do research, especially considered under the heading of descriptive techniques.
Thoughts or attitudes.
So survey, survey research is defined as people chosen to represent a larger population are asked a series of questions about their behaviors, maybe their thoughts, or their attitudes. And surveys can be done different ways. You could email somebody a survey. You could hand out a physical paper or document to do a survey. I could do a survey right now. Let's do a survey. We're gonna do a survey right now. And we're gonna use just a show of hands. How many of you have traveled outside of the United States? Show of hands. Wow, okay, that's just surprised me. So according to this classroom survey, most of you have been out of this country. I'm really surprised. That was like 2/3. Almost everybody has been out the country. That is impressive. Wow. I didn't leave state of Illinois, I was like 21. I'm serious. First time I got on a plane, I think I was 23 years old or something like that. You guys have been out of the country? Okay, great. I've been out of the country since then several times. But. So yeah, so we just did, I would call that an impromptu survey. That's a survey on the spot. That's something that I'll do throughout the semester. I'll be like, hey, show of hands. How many of you believe that guns are great for society? I mean, I may ask something. Anyway, so now there are advantages, once again, disadvantages. The advantages of doing a survey is that you can really get a lot of information about a large group of people. So like if the school sends you a survey, think about it. That's a lot of students answering that survey. Now the disadvantages is that sometimes with a survey, people may not always be truthful. But they don't have to be. Especially depending on the question. For example, if there was a survey that said, something people don't like to admit, that you have tried hard drugs before. See, if the school sent out that survey, how many of you have done hard drugs? Some people be like, I'm not comfortable answering that question because I don't want them to know. So they either wouldn't answer or they would lie. That's the downside to doing a survey. Somebody may not be truthful. Like I said, it definitely depends on the question. I'm gonna tell you what really blows my mind, and I'm sure some of you have seen this. Who's on TikTok in here? Instagram? Facebook? Okay. So every once in a while, you ever see one of those videos where people are on the street? There's like maybe a guy or a gal, they're on the street, and they'll be like in some maybe a popular night spot or a place in somewhere in Florida, and they'll just ask them these sexual questions. They'll be like, I'm not gonna get too graphic. They'll be like, so what's your body count? That's kind of a survey, but I'm like, why would anybody want to answer those type of questions? Like when they ask these sexual questions, like, when's the last time you slept with somebody? Like, what's your favorite position? Like, whoa, you're getting kind of personal here. But sometimes they go ahead and answer, probably because they're drunk, but still, that's just, because that's going across the globe when you say that, and maybe your parents may not be comfortable you just answering that question. Okay. Another type of research is a case study. Where a survey can be really quick, a case study cannot be really quick. And as you're writing it down, and once we talk about it, you know a case study, it can't be quick.
Group of
So a case study is an in-depth, intensive investigation of an individual or a small group of people. The reason why they can't, it's hard for them, or they can't really be brief because it's in depth. So say, for example, somebody was out in the Amazon forest in Brazil, and they found an 8-year-old boy who apparently has been living out there his whole life on his own. I don't know, maybe some monkeys were help caring for him, I don't know. So he doesn't know English, he doesn't know the human language. They will probably want to do a case study on him to see, now that he's back in civilization, how long does it take him to learn? How long does it take him to learn how to communicate? How long will it take him to not just speak, but even just learn? So they would have to study it for a long time. For example, they may do a case study, I'm sure they have done case studies like this, where they go, you know what, let's see what happens when we're going to study people who were adopted as children. How do they turn out as adults? You can't make that a fast, like a case study takes a while, so you have to wait, okay? And you see what happens with them as you go along. So case studies usually take a while, and it can be one individual or a group of people. We're going to do a case study of all these people who, I don't want to get political, but this just came to my head. We're going to do the people in Palestine, a lot of death. How do they grow up? We're going to see how much living in a war-torn country, how does that affect them when they grow up? The disadvantages are, you're just looking at a small group of people. It may or may not. It can help you understand this situation, but it may not help you understand a large group of people. All right, so those are 5 ways to do that type of research. Okay. Now we're going to get into another way of doing research. It's called correlation. And that means how things relate to one another. Okay. I'm not going to be able to do this now. Okay. So I want you to write this down, And then I'm gonna use the dry erase board to show you what I mean. There's something called a positive correlation and a negative correlation. You write these down, and then I'm going to show you what that looks like when you're doing research and you're looking for a positive correlation or a negative correlation. Anybody else need to sign the pen sheet? Like I said, all you need is the underlying portion. Because the first part of that definition is what the textbook says, but it don't make sense. I mean, okay, it makes sense. It's just the textbook sometimes uses all these extra words to make it harder to understand. I don't know why they speak that way. The underlying definition is pretty simple and plain. It should be much easier to understand. I have issues with our textbook in a lot of different ways. One of those is how they try to explain stuff. They can explain stuff much simpler. Some stuff in the textbook I flat out disagree with, just so you know. But I'm trying to be a critical thinker, just like I want you guys to. Okay, what the heck is a positive correlation? Ignoring the textbook definition is when two things either increase together, these are two things, or they decrease together. So what does that mean exactly? Well, let's talk about it. Let me give you some examples. The more I study, so that's more, the more I study, the higher my test scores are. That's a positive correlation. The more I study, the higher my test rates are. Now, it don't matter whether they're going up or down, as long as it's either 2 up or 2 down. So let's go with, this is still positive correlation. Either 2 things going up or 2 things going down. Here's 2 things going down. When I eat less food, I lose weight. That's 2 things, they're going together, but they're both going down. When I lose sleep, I lose focus, and I get low test scores. 2 things either go up together or they go down. In a few minutes, we're not gonna do a quiz, but we're gonna answer it as a class in a few minutes, just to make sure you understand this concept. Now, negative correlation, as one thing increases, the other decreases. What are we talking about? Let's go with
Bills.
what was that?
Bills.
Bills. Okay, let me see if we can pull that together. So go ahead and put this in. So one thing going up and one goes down.
The more bills you have to pay, the less money you have.
Awesome, Diego. Exactly. Did you guys hear what he said? The more bills you have to pay, the less money you have to spend on other stuff. That is a negative correlation. And that's the difference between positive and negative correlation. And so when people are doing research, they like to see how things affect one another. How does this affect this? Does this go up together? Does this go down together? Or does one go up and one goes down? Now, just to see if we understand this concept, these are some 4 factual things that have been concluded through some old research studies. I want you to tell me, as a class, is it a positive correlation or a negative correlation? The first one, the more children and youth use various media, the less happy they were in their lives. Is it a positive or negative correlation? So, what is it? Because what, that means one went up and one went down. What went up?
The more
And then what went down?
the happiness.
The level of happiness. And like I said, this is not just an example. The reason why it's got that notation, the name and the date, that's because this is actual factual research that somebody did during that time. Let's go to the next one. The more sexual content that teens saw on TV, the more likely they were to have sex.
As in make love?
What was that?
As in make love?
Or you could say that if you want to go and making love, yes. So yeah, that's positive because the more sexual stuff they watched, the more they were likely to have sex. Like I said, you don't have to agree with it, but this was what the study said. But see, now, let's be honest, how much sex do teens see on TV? We know in reality, most people just pick up their device and they watch something a little bit more graphic than sex on TV. But we're not gonna get into that right now. Number 3, the longer children were breastfed, the greater their later academic achievement.
Positive.
That is positive. They were breastfed more and they did better in school. Now, I don't know what the cutoff point, I hope they weren't like 8 years old, so they breastfed, but that's what they researched. And the last one, the more that income rose among poor families, the fewer symptoms of mental illness their children experience.
Positive.
Okay, negative, because what went up? The money, and what went down? Mental illness. There you go. You guys got it. So then, you guys, hopefully everybody understand the concept? Great, because I promise you there will be 1 or 2 questions I'm just going to ask you. Just got to time the negative correlation. I'm just letting you know. It's good. But it's a pretty simple concept, and you seem like you guys got it. All right. We don't really care about this. Environment of experiments. Yeah, you do experiments to find out things. Now, okay. So we are going to actually form a company. Yes, this class. We're going to form a company. And as a matter of fact, we're going to be a pharmaceutical company. By the way, what do you guys think the #1 goal is of a pharmaceutical company? What are they really trying to do?
Take money.
The investigation of the ratio between.
I mean, I guess they're trying to help us too. But you said no. You think the sole goal is making money? You know, I'd like to disagree with you, but it's hard. But some medications do help us though. I mean, that is true as well. I'll give one to that in a second. Okay, so when a company, let's say a pharmaceutical company, like we're about to become, when we make a new drug, we gotta test it to find out if it works. You just have to. So, we're gonna put a pin in that, we're gonna come back to that. Now, so we have our company. We're gonna need to have an experimental group and a control group to make sure our medicine works. So write down what the experimental group is and then the control group. And then we're gonna create our, we gotta decide what drug we're creating. Okay, somebody may still be Friday, but for those of you who are not, okay. So, we're a pharmaceutical company. We just made a new medicine, a new pill. What do we want this pill to be able to do? What do you guys want this pill to do? It's our company.
Cure cancer.
Wow. You just want to go for the big bucks. Okay. So one of the things our pill can do is cure cancer. You know what? If this drug works, we're all so freaking wealthy. I mean, seriously, if we create a pill that definitely, without a doubt, cures cancer, all of us are multimillionaires, if not billionaires. Anything else you want this pill to be able to do?
Hair growth.
Grow hair? Okay. Okay. Okay, we can do one more thing too. Well, one more thing we can add to this pill. This is a special pill. It's really strong, clearly.
Increase your vision.
Increase vision. We, boy, this pill works. So, we have our company, our pharmaceutical company. We have got our technicians and our researchers, and they've been in the labs, and we think we have a pill that cures cancer, grows your hair, no side bonus, and increases or improves your vision. That's nice. Now, we cannot just put this on the market. It don't work that way. We just can't like, okay, let's get this to CVS and Walgreens. Absolutely not. We will get sued. We have to test it. We have to do a test. And to do that, we're probably gonna need people. Because we can't make a pill and find out, oh, it puts people to sleep and they never wake up. No, that's the problem. We'll get sued. Can't have that. So we have to go find some people who are willing to volunteer to be our guinea pigs or our experimental group. So we're going to have two groups of people. We need to see if it works. One group we're going to give our pill to. So we got 100 people, 50 people. We're going to give our actual pill to and see if it works. We're going to see if, and some of those people have cancer, some of those people are bald, some of those people have poor vision. Then we have another group of people who have cancer, some who are bald and have poor vision. We're not going to give them our pill. So the experimental group, that's why I put it in bold, they get our pill. The control group does not. But here's the thing, the control group, we got to give them something to make them think they're getting our pill. So one group is getting the real pill, the other group is getting a fake pill. Or in other words, it's called a placebo. You can write that down, I know where to go back. Whenever you see the word placebo, know what that means, fake. You can write down the whole definition, or just write the word fake. Either one is fine. But the definition according to your textbook, a placebo is a false treatment or other substance without any significant chemical properties or active ingredients. In other words, a placebo does not have anything in it. Now, we're going to come back to placebo because
Chemical properties.
Even though half the people got the fake pill, got the placebo
active
pill,
ingredients.
that doesn't mean that they don't get help. You're like, what do you mean? Well, you don't have to know this. There's a thing called a placebo effect, which means a person can experience a positive change because they were expecting it. Our minds are so powerful, more powerful than we realize, to the point where
Caused by expectations alone.
because you think something is going to work, it works. even if it's fake. Here's this example right here. This is an example of how powerful the placebo effect is. In Finland, surgeons, now you can't do this. This is unethical and this is wrong. But in Finland, surgeons have patients come in to have surgery to repair the torn cartilage in their knee. Okay, so everybody's there to get knee surgery. Half the patients receive the surgery. The other half, they were put to sleep just like everybody else. They gave them anesthesia, they put them to sleep. But the doctors cut them and just pretended to do the surgery. They didn't really do it. They just made it look like it. What's amazing is that both groups improved. Another study where they worked on with people who had broken vertebrae, that's like your back. Half the subjects went into the surgery to reconstruct their back. The other half was given a placebo surgery, a fake surgery. In 2 different trials, the placebo surgery worked just as well as the real surgery. Some of you get a headache. Some of you take an aspirin, and aspirins work for you, or Tylenol, and your headache goes away. Some of you, your headache goes away because you expect it to go away because you took the Tylenol or the aspirin. That's the placebo effect. When I was a little kid, I used to see adults drink and stuff like that. So sometimes I would take Kool-Aid and I would drink it and pretend like I was getting drunk. I'd be slurring and stumbling. And I really felt drunk. I can't be drunk on Kool-Aid. Same thing with drugs. Some people, I'm not a marijuana smoker, but some people, they smoke a joint, they feeling all high. In reality, that wasn't even real weed. But the mind thought it was. Our minds are so powerful. That's why you gotta be careful what you think. You gotta be careful because your brain and your ego, that part of you that always wants to be right, your brain and your ego come together to make you right. Whatever you believe, your brain and your ego is gonna try to make it reality. So if you believe that, say, no one's ever gonna want me, I'm not desirable, your brain and your ego, they're gonna work together to make you right. They're gonna be like, your brain is gonna be like, well, okay, here's why no one's ever gonna want you. And it will start finding reasons. Well, look at how you dress. Oh, you don't even have a good sense of humor. Or you're too short, or you're too tall. Like your brain wants you to be, your ego wants you to be right. And your brain wants to support that. So be careful what you think, because you gotta be careful. Now, I'm gonna go back for a second. Whoops. Okay, now, we talked about the experimental group who got our pill. The control group did not. The control group don't know they got the fake. They don't know, we can't let them know. Now, sometimes when you do an experiment, there's certain experimental bias. That means sometimes experimenters, they see what they want to see. Oh, look, we got the results we wanted. Perfect. That's because that's what you want to see. That's called experimental bias. Now, when you're doing our experiment, we have what's called the independent variable and the dependent variable. Pay close attention to the words that I put in the larger print. Independent variable, as you can see in big bold print, I have the treatment. For dependent variable, in big bold print, the data or results. Remember those key words, you'll remember the term for the exam. And keep in mind, all my exams are multiple choice, A, B, C, or D, so the answer will be on the page, right in front of you.
No, man.
Independent variable is a variable that is manipulated by an experiment, sometimes referred to as the treatment. So if the independent variable is the treatment, meanwhile, the dependent variable is what's being measured. It's the data or the results. So with our pill, that of course is really awesome because it cures cancer, it helps vision, and it grows hair. What is the pill is which one? The independent variable or the dependent variable?
Sometimes referred.
It's the independent variable. It's the treatment. It's what we're giving people. So our drug is the independent variable. And then depending upon the outcome, or us finding out if it worked or not, that's called the dependent variable. So just think about it. The dependent variable begins with the letter D. Data begins with the letter D. That should help you remember. Real simple. Dependent variable is the data, the results.
And dependent variable is the variable that's measured in an experiment.
Yes, but I would probably just go with the data or results.
Usually at the end of the experiment, it's expected to change as a result of what the experimenter did. In other words, it's what's measured, the data, or the results.
That's right. That stuff in between is all confusing and too wordy for me. That's why it's not underlined. It's the treatment and the data. Do a couple more placebo effect stories. Right about those down.
Experiment.
You good, so? Okay, I already told you what placebo is. Another example of placebo is the sugar pill. And that's what sometimes, instead of giving the real pill, instead of giving somebody our pill, we might give the other people nothing more than a sugar pill. People have tricked their bodies into thinking that they were sick, but they actually became, that's all confusing. There were patients who basically believed they're better because they were told by the doctor. Now, some other examples include scientists, they tricked some runners into thinking they were drinking special oxygenated water. And they were like, when you drink this, you're gonna perform better. In reality, the runners were drinking regular tap water. But when they ran, they performed better because they were thinking they were drinking this high performance elixir. That's the placebo effect. Our minds are so strong. We underestimate it. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, the placebo effect is bad. If you have a headache and you think by taking Advil it's gonna go away, does it really matter if it went away? I mean, it went away. It maybe went away because you expected it to go away, but it still went away. I mean, what's your name? James. Sorry, James. Okay, what are you about to say, James?
No, this is in relation to this is a case. World War II, where they gave morphine to either soldiers or like cancer patients or something like that, and there was one side that actually got morphine, but the other side placebo. They thought they had morphine, but they didn't, and it still actually worked. It's like
That's, yep.
Again, I don't know what part of the but
Yeah, that's, I believe that. Definitely, I believe that. All right. Let's see now. Write down this term. Now I'm explain what this means.
Mhm.
Double-blind procedure. double blind. The word double means two. So, two people are blind, not literally, but figuratively.
Experimenter.
I'll explain that in a moment as well. If our pill gets to the market, we're gonna be rich. I wonder how many of you all gonna stay in school? Not many, probably. But if you're rich, you can start
The
your own
nature.
company. So if you're here for
All the supplements
HVAC,
being administered.
start your own HVAC company if you got a couple $1 million. Here for welding, your own welding company.
Mr. Jones, you've been here since this year and past few months? And
At this school?
yeah,
I've been here 10, I think, going on 11 years.
awesome.
Yep. One class every year.
Sweet.
You guys are at one special class this year. Even though I've been offered to have more classes. I've been offered to be a full-time instructor. Nope. I got clients. I got clients to see. But that's why I take so much pride in this class. That's why I like us coming together. This is special. That I put all my energy, attention, and focus on you guys. Double blind procedure. Okay, so we got our magic pill. I mean, we got our pill that we created. Cures cancer. Grows hair back. I can use some of that right now. And it improves vision. I can use that too. I wear glasses when I drive sometimes, especially at night. We got our control group and our experimental group because we got to test the drug. But I mentioned something called experimental bias, where people researchers kind of see what they want to see. To make sure the results are real, we need to do a double-blind procedure. Now, the definition is both the experimenter and the participant are blind to the nature of the substance being administered. In other words, when we do a double-blind procedure, we, as the researchers, don't know who got the real pill and who got the placebo. And the people we did the experiment on, the people we gave it to, they don't know if they're getting the real pill or the placebo. So nobody knows. We're blind, they're blind. Two groups of people, that's why it's called a double-blind procedure. Because that's the way we gotta really find out if it works. When COVID happened, by the way, anybody who volunteered like immediately to, I'll volunteer, give me the shot. Those are some brave people. That's all I gotta say. If that was one of you guys, that's fine. I would have never been one of, because they had to, I don't know if you know this, they had to test those vaccines on thousands of people.
Wasn't it not yet like FDA approved?
Well, the FDA did some sort of expedited approval. That's what they did. No, they still have to. They figured out some way to how to fast track it so they get people, because we didn't really know what was going on except that a lot of people were dying. That's all we knew. And a lot of you guys, your schooling got affected. I don't know what grade you were when it happened, but you were out of school for about 1.5 years. Am I correct? I don't know what grade you were in, but that's, and yes.
I remember doing like every COVID test in 2021, I took the vaccine and the booster shot.
Okay.
I was told you're not supposed to do it, I'm so close to doing it. But my arm was
Sore right now. Yeah, I bet it was. Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird, that's still weird. And unfortunately, COVID is now part of our lives just like the flu. That's the reality. It's not. The flu ain't going nowhere. The common cold isn't going anywhere. And now COVID isn't going anywhere. Fortunately, it doesn't appear like it's going to be as bad as it was then, where so many people were dying and hospitals were
don't.
overflowing with people. I don't think it's gonna be that again, thank goodness. But, yeah, but some people had to get they had to get the shot, and some people got the shot, and it wasn't nothing in it. They got a placebo, because they had to see if it worked. And for some people, like, oh, I think it works, and so you gotta do a double blind. Now, I don't know exactly what method they use to do a double blind. I'm sure there's a variety of things, like maybe so if all of us were the ones getting the pill or getting the fake, maybe we get assigned a random number and only the computer knows. The computer knows that, Katie, your number 342. But I don't know until I check it out the computer, find, oh, number 342 did get the rare pill. And then I can ask you how you feel. Is your vision better? You still need your glasses? So yeah, so that's why I do a double blind, is so they don't know. So nobody knows who gets the real thing. And later on, they're able to figure out who got the real thing. And then now we can see if our pill is successful, now we can hopefully get it FDA approved, we can get it to the market, and all become wealthy. Yes. No, you're fine. No, I welcome discussion and stuff. Feel free.
No, it's just, it's a question. So, if we don't have, it's, a lot of people would be against the idea of testing humans.
Yes.
Who would they test on?
Okay.
If there was no humans.
So, he asked, people were against testing, who will we test on? Yeah, that's. So, when we can't test on people, and we're gonna get into that in a moment, who do you think, or what do you think we test on? Animals. Actually, before we even try anything on people, it starts with animals first. It just does. So trust me, animals were given the COVID vaccine way before human was. And I don't know, they probably use a variety of animals. Animals that are the most common animal that gets tested in labs are rats. Another popular animal are rabbits. Especially like ladies, those of you who like wearing eye makeup. Apparently, the eye of a rabbit is very sensitive, like ours, and so they will test eye makeup on a rabbit. Because think about it, ladies, you guys put stuff like literally on your eyelid. That's a pretty risky thing to do. They've got to make sure your eyelid isn't going to burn and fall off. So. Yes.
But even if they put it on a rabbit, it still wouldn't be the same effect as on a human, right?
Probably not, but like I said, it's close. They do a lot of experiments with dogs, cats, and monkeys. Monkeys' physiology, chimpanzee, is very similar to ours. I mean, that's our closest relative as far as animals. And so they feel like, well, it's safe here, maybe it's safe there. So I don't know with the COVID vaccine, I don't know if they started with rats, moved up to dogs, like I don't know how they did it, but once they saw, okay, this chimp is okay, let's see if we can find some brave humans who want to be the first. Maybe we can pay them. Because sometimes you get paid, an incentive to be, I mean, typically if you're gonna be an experiment or be experimented on, they will pay you. And so we're gonna get into that right now. This is called, we're in a section called the ethics of research. Meaning, there are certain things that us as a pharmaceutical company or anybody else doing research, we have certain guidelines that we're supposed to follow. And I've only underlined the guidelines that I want you to know, and they just coincidentally happen to be the ones that are going to be on the test. So these are guidelines that we have to do for our research. And they're also guidelines that you need to be aware of in case you are part of a research experiment. Somebody in this room might decide, you know what, I hear Emory is having a sleep study. I have problems sleeping. I'm gonna go participate in this sleep study, or this sleep research, or this new pill to help with sleep. I'm gonna go down to Emory, they want me to come there, bless you, spend the night there for a few days. or take a nap there and they wanna hook stuff up to me, you have rights. And you need to know about your rights as being a person in these experiments. And so these are guidelines that are put into place to protect you or protect the people we need to experiment on to make sure our field does those wonderful magical things that we hope we can do so we can get wealthy and all move to tropical islands. Well, I'm sure everybody can move. I do like island living, it's really nice. My wife and I go to Aruba like every other year. Plus, I don't know if you guys know, that's you guys, I used to be a radio DJ? That's you guys said? Yeah. Okay. There was at one point, I lived on the island of Guam where I hosted a morning radio show. So I have lived on an island, it's nice. It's really nice, going to work, flip flops, shorts and this. Water close by, no matter where you go. Guam is not a big island. So, the first two guidelines that are mentioned here is that there has to be protection of the participants from physical or mental harm. So in other words, if you decide to be in a research study, you're not supposed to be harmed physically or mentally. Nope. That's a potential lawsuit. Hey, I participated in this experiment and now I can't sleep, or I have panic attacks now. That's a problem. The second point you wrote down was the rights of the participant to privacy regarding their behavior. Meaning if you decide to be in this sleep study at Emory University, they can't tell anybody Sophie was in our experiment about sleep. No, that's confidential.
About the nature.
And they can't say, oh, not only was she in our experiment, she screwed it up for us. She didn't do like the other participants. She still wouldn't go to sleep no matter what medication we gave her. No, you have a right to privacy regarding your behavior or what happened while you were in the experiment. That's confidential. Now, a couple other guidelines that need to be in place. One is called informed consent. That is the first one. And the second one is a debriefing. Informed consent and then a debriefing. Did everybody sign the attendance sheets? You did not. Okay. And you did not.
Assignment.
And use blood. Or blood.
Mm-hmm. That they have been told. About basic outlines of the study. Basic outlines. Study. What their participation will involve. Oh, okay.
Look at that high tech. That is really impressive. Look at that, comes apart and everything. All right. Okay, let's talk about the first thing, informed consent. If you decide to be in an experiment, there has to be a document signed. You have to sign something where you affirm that you've been told about the basic outlines of the study. You're aware of what your participation involves. In other words, you have to sign something agreeing to be a part of this experiment. That is informed consent. Those of you who have been in therapy, or those of you who may one day utilize therapy, you will have to sign an informed consent. A document that states you are agreeing to participate in therapy. Informed consent. You go sit there, I promise you, when they say I need you to sign something, you are signing an informed consent. Now, if you're part of a research study or some sort of experiment, they're supposed to give you an idea. They don't have to give you all the details of this experiment, because maybe they don't want you to know all the details, because they're afraid if they tell you everything, it may influence the outcome. But they gotta at least give you the basics that is outlined, basics to what the experiment is all about. Now, after the experiment is over, let's say you were part of the sleep study at Emory, and it's been 6 weeks and now it's over. After participation in the study, participants receive an explanation of the study and the procedures that were involved. In other words, afterwards, the debriefing is when they sit down and tell you, okay, here's more detail about what the experiment was about. This is why we did this study. And here's the different techniques that we use to get this information. They gotta basically come clean. That's the debriefing, coming clean on what they did. Now, if deception was used, they're supposed to come clean with that too. Because sometimes researchers, they may not tell you everything because they may even kind of lie to you, which is a little unethical. But sometimes they may have to fudge the truth because they're trying to get certain information from you. And if they did fudge the truth, during the debriefing is where they need to say, okay, we know we told you this, it's supposed to be a sleep study, but in reality we were studying dreams. We want to see what happened for you during REM sleep. Like now they need to confess. Or else it can be a problem, or a lawsuit, which nobody wants. Now, a few moments ago, we talked about animals in research. How many animal lovers in this room? Okay, about half, or a little bit more. There are a lot of people who have major issues with animals being experimented on. They think it's cruel and unnecessary, and think animals should be left out in the wild to do what they want to do. Which is why you have some groups, such as PETA, which stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, who protest animals being used for research. To be honest with you, PETA is so intense, they protest anything related to animals. They protest animals in circuses, animals being kept in the zoo, aquariums, people wear fur coats, animals have to be killed, wear fur coats, some of their techniques can be a little over the top. And they've been known to throw paint on people wearing a fur coat. They've been known to do that. They've been known to go after whaling ships or ships that catch tuna or whatever, something like that. Like PETA can be a very intense group, and there's other groups that's not as intense as they are, but the point is they're trying to defend animals. And so what safeguards should be used to protect the well-being of animals in research? So supposedly researchers are supposed to try to minimize the discomfort or the illness or the pain that they inflict to the animals. Now, I don't know how they know that they're reducing the pain done to an animal. I don't know how they know that, but they're supposed to be trying to do that. I get a feeling that may not happen, but that's supposed to be the goal. There are benefits to using animals for research, whether you're against it or not. A lot of medical progress, advances have taken place because they were able to use animals. That's how we got the development of antibiotics, immunizations, and certain surgical procedures. That's why polio got eliminated for the most part from the US, because they used animals. There's this awesome movie, it's old now, I don't know if you ever saw it. It's called Something the Lord Made. Is anybody? It stars Mos Def. He's like a rapper. Okay. It's based on a true story and I think it happened in the 40s or something. So this character who used to be a rapper, his name is Mo Dip, he plays a janitor at a college institution, Vanderbilt. But he's really, really smart. He's a carpenter on the side, and he wants to go to med school, but because he's black, and because during that time, he couldn't get in medical school. He just worked as a janitor in a lab. The lab that he worked in, they were doing research because they were trying to cure something that was called blue baby syndrome. Like, what was that? It doesn't even exist anymore. Blue baby syndrome was a condition in which babies would actually turn blue, and then they would die. Like, what's that about? Well, what was happening, the babies were experiencing some type of blockage in their heart. Ultimately, it would cause them to turn blue and then die. And so they were trying to figure out how to address it. And so this carpenter slash janitor, who was really brilliant, he started working with, can I help you? Okay, I'm sorry. This is psychology. What time is your class meet? English. Okay, I think it might be English class in here at 11:30. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I think you just here a little early. No problem. And so the main doctor, surgeon, researcher realized this guy is really smart. He ended up, the two of them ended up working together. And he ended up working at Vanderbilt and St. John's Hospital. Like this former janitor ended up getting an honorary doctorate degree. He ended up teaching medical classes, at a medical school. But back to the blue heart condition, the blue baby condition. To figure out how to address the problem, they had to use animals. They would go get dogs from the pound. And to even help, first they had to literally figure out a way how to block vessels, how to create a blockage in the dog's heart. They had to. A lot of dogs died during the procedure. So they first had to figure out how to create the blockage that's similar to what the babies experience. And then, once they could create the blockage, then they can work on trying to fix or eliminate the blockage. And during that time, there was no such thing as heart surgery. What they were doing was considered unethical. During that time period, there was a medical model that said, do not touch the heart. That was forbidden. You never touch the heart as a doctor and a surgeon. That's off limits. And so it was very controversial what this former janitor and this other doctor were doing. But long story short, they were eventually able to figure out how to create blockage in a dog's heart, and then how to fix it. And then they did it on the first baby. There was some desperate parents in the movie. They were like, they didn't want the baby to die. The baby was on the verge of dying. And it worked. Both of them became very famous. Both of them. And from that point on, a lot of babies got saved, but they had to use it. So they're just supposed to really try to not make sure the animals are not stressed out as much as possible and do everything else. I mean, I don't know if there'd be eye makeup if they didn't use rabbits. I don't know. A lot of diseases have been cured because they were able to do research on animals. Their biology is pretty similar to us. And that is pretty much it. Any questions about anything? Okay. For those who came late, we do our reminders or our announcements. Next week, Tuesday, we're starting a new chapter. We're going to chapter 4, States of Consciousness. That includes anything that alters your state, whether it's perceptions, drugs, sleep, we're talking about sleep, and dreams. That's starting next week on Tuesday. Also, quiz 1, if you have not already done so, you have until Tuesday, September 2nd, to get that complete. All right? No questions?
No, sir.
everybody, please enjoy. It's a 3-day weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe. And I'll see you next week.